I understand real estate. I understand how banks underwrite loans. I know how to, from that experience, I learned how to read tax returns and businesses. And, it just, it kind of completed the circle for me because a lot of the clients that I meet, real estate tends to be one of the biggest assets clients own. It wasn't really until my son joined the practice and we had been planning this for, we've been planning it and talked about it for years, but not until he really made that commitment that I think, wow, I really need to start thinking about legacy and what I want to do with the business, right? I started my podcast. I've shot 5 episodes already. That's been a big deal that's been a work in progress to get the branding and my voice out there and taking a lot of courage to put yourself out there like that.
What gives you that type of idea that, this is just going to work out? It's going to work.
Because I've seen other advisors talk about it, right? I've seen other advisors that I've met that have been through the same process. The advisor, the team, the AMP team, the other advisors on that call, I've heard their stories. I've watched probably 40 of your podcasts. and while I'm walking and that mindset, and I like, I have a lot of knowledge to share with clients and there's so many people that I can help. I know it.
Systems work, people fail. Welcome to InsureMark's Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Hauser, and we are off to an incredible 2025. We've actually had some really good guests here over the last couple of weeks, talking all things sales, talking a little bit about financial psychology, and I wanted to bring in a new partnership of ours with a financial professional out of California, Mark Taylan. How are we doing today, Mark?
Hi, Jeremy. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. So looking forward to today's conversation. I know you're actually one of the newer members of our team here for AMP. And also I'd love to, at least start off so those that may not be too familiar with who Mark is, maybe they met you out at a Founders Club experience out in Miami. But tell us a little bit about your background and also a little bit about your business model out there in California.
I'll give you the quick summary. So, I started in 1993 in a regional bank. So I started out as a banker, and I had no clue what financial services was or what stocks were even at the time. But it was in that experience that I actually met a branch financial advisor who introduced me to the whole world of financial planning and investments. So once I learned that, for the next 8 years, I went and got my licenses, finished college, and I worked under a team of 2 advisors that really mentored me into the business. So in 2002, I was promoted to the lead financial advisor. I worked for a number of different firms, Morgan, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo Advisors. So I did that for many years. And in 2008, I broke away and started my own practice. It's a firm called Advisors360. So I'm a licensed fiduciary. I clear through an RIA. So I'm tucked underneath an RIA. But I run my own independent practice in California. I've been practicing. I got my Series 7 in 2002 and insurance license in 2002. So I've been practicing for, 20 plus years, 23, 24 years now.
So with your current processes of what you're doing, so when did you decide to go independent? So when did you officially break off and then now moving forward with your actual team? Because I think you now have not just your son, but you have some others that are starting to work with your firm as well too. So what year did that start again?
Well, I founded Advisors360 in 2014.
Okay.
My son, as you mentioned, joined the practice about a year ago. And then we are currently working to add other staff at this point.
Got it. And I think so. One of the things and why I wanted to have you on, because it's pretty exciting to watch the evolution of your business, because we started working together just a handful of months ago. And I actually listened to your first podcast that you recently launched. So
Thanks.
we'll talk a little bit about that. And one thing that stuck out was really your real estate background too. So I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit more about, maybe something that separates you from the other competition, or how in detail do you get when you talk to consumers? Is that something that comes up a lot with real estate?
It really does. I'll tell you, in 2006, I'm always learning, and I want to, I think of it as different languages that I speak, right? And one of those things is real estate. So in 2006, I went and got my California real estate broker's license. And actually in 2016, 17, I got my NMLS license. So I understand real estate. I understand how banks underwrite loans. I know how to, from that experience, I learned how to read tax returns and businesses. And, it just, it kind of completed the circle for me, because a lot of the clients that I meet, real estate tends to be one of the biggest assets clients own. So they always want to have discussions about that. Let's talk about rental property in regards to what type of income it generates. Let's talk about a primary residence transition to maybe downsizing to a new home, and what does that look like from a financial planning aspect of it. So I really think when I think about clients in the beginning, one of the first things that I do, of course, is I want to understand the financial blueprint, and oftentimes that real estate piece always comes up. So
when you're doing your financial planning, you're talking about real estate, what came first? Was it more so you're just coming across a lot of client engagements, prospects that just were asking you questions? Or was it more of, I'm going to go use this as an extra tool in the arsenal when I'm now doing financial planning to actually have a unique angle when having a conversation?
Yeah, great question. It's another asset on the balance sheet, right? So, one of the things we look at is, let's talk about that primary residence. And when you're doing financial planning, one of the first things you're looking at is, the assets they own, but also the debt they carry, the liabilities. So part of that process is when somebody's planning for retirement, they some of them still have that mortgage. And so we have to plan for when that mortgage gets paid off in the future, or how they plan on using that property. A recent client of mine said, I asked them, I thought, your mortgage is almost paid off. What are your plans around this property? Should we, plan to get that paid off prior to retiring? What are your thoughts about that? And one of the things they said to me is, this is not our forever house. Our plan is to downsize. So there's really not a need to pay this mortgage off, because we're just going to extract that equity and use it to bridge to the next property and whatever extra proceeds that we're going to get. Because in most cases, especially in the Bay Area, single family in Bay Area is about 1.5, and that's just a standard 1,500 square foot home. Some of these clients have
ridiculous,
I
by
know.
the way. But go ahead.
I know some of these clients with, they've empty nesters. So I've got a client that has a 6-bedroom, 4-bath house. They have 3 daughters, and it's an empty nest now for the 2 of them. And it's, 2.3, 2.4 million. And it's the biggest asset they have. They didn't save quite as much as they needed to. They have college tuition and things like that. So this becomes an asset that now we have to figure out, what is the estimated net? And so we have to sit down and actually really discuss that. What are the net of taxes? And they've got the exemptions for taxes when they sell their primary residence. And what does that translate to in regards to income? And so they want to see, like, what is that bridge? What does that path look like to get them to where they want to?
Have you ever written an annuity case and it took not only days, maybe weeks or months to get the funds transferred from another insurance carrier? That is one of the biggest pains in our industry, and we may have a solution for you with a particular carrier. Remember North American, the company that is 139 years old and holds an A+ rating with AM Best, S&P, and Fitch. Also, the carrier that has the Secure Horizon suite of FIAs, which was awarded Deal of the Year in 2024 by SRP Americas. Oh yeah, that company. Well, they now have a cutting-edge technology that is paperless and just made business a lot more simple around transfers and 1035 exchanges. This process goes a little like this. If they request a 1035 exchange from another carrier within 24 to 48 hours, that carrier through the DTCC platform must process that request and feed those funds digitally to North American. You heard that right. No more having to hear from the transfer company, we didn't get the paperwork, or we're in the process of manually entering that request, and also no more conservation efforts. So what does that mean for you as a writing advisor or agent? First of all, no more headaches because of emails or calls back and forth with the carriers. And more importantly, business gets issued faster, and that means you get paid commissions that much quicker. If you are interested in finding out which carriers are currently participating and which ones will be following soon, go to www.insuremarkamp.com/Jeremy and click on Learn More. And it's incredible because I'm always very intrigued. We just bought a home last year too. So, I'm very in tune of like what square foot could get here in my area. And then when you just roll out 1.5 million for 1,500 square feet, goodness gracious. But obviously these people too, so they do have a huge opportunity, but if they are looking to, I don't even know if you would downsize that necessarily, but if they sell and want to move away, pretty big investment or a lot of capital that they could actually take from it. And I want to go back to, so I think you started working with us maybe in, I want to say it was first conversation about August of 2024 of last year. And one of the things I was curious with you of, especially now it's been, call it 8 months, 9 months of us working together. So tell us a little bit about your business before working with us at Simplicity Insure, Mark. How was business back then?
I think you and I had a discussion somewhere around June, and August, I think I really jumped on board. And, prior to my son joining the practice, I was an independent advisor. I felt like I already made it. I had the perfect book of clients that, had been with me most, the shortest amount of time was at least a decade that some of the clients had been with me, as long as 20 plus year relationships. So I had built a practice where I was, I've been the lead advisor for those clients for many, many years. So very content. I wasn't growing by doing any marketing. It was just organically through leads and it's a multi-generational practice. So a lot of that is my clients aged and I walked with them to the end of their lives. I already had those relationships with their children and the grandchildren already. So, that legacy continues. That's really important when, you're advising families for that period of time because their needs change as they get older and legacy is really important. But to be honest, I really wasn't growing at the rate that I wasn't really focused on growth of the practice. I was pretty content. When you're an advisor and you're an independent, you're really sometimes on an island. And so I was doing everything. And I've heard this from many other advisors that I've spoken to recently is, gosh, I was doing everything that I shouldn't be doing, right? To the point of sometimes I was even taking out the trash. I'm embarrassed to say that. But they talk about, things that you shouldn't be doing and what you should be focused on. But I ran a very clean and a book of business that required, that I really had everybody really dialed in. And it wasn't really till my son joined the practice that, and let me back up for a second. And part of that independent practice that I built allowed me to really get involved with the real estate over that, that period of time. So I was kind of doing both. I was really getting into the real estate piece and still managing my practice. But it wasn't really until my son joined the practice and we had been planning this for, we've been planning it and talked about it for years, but not until he really made that commitment that I think, wow, I really need to start thinking about legacy and what I want to do with the business, right? And so when he joined, we started talking, getting him used to the business itself and meeting clients. And then I remember a call and somehow you and I were on a Zoom meeting one day. And I thought, I was explaining to him that, a lot of companies will work to support advisors in their practice, and you and I had that conversation, and it really opened up my world in a big way, because I started thinking more about, instead of being inside my business, working on the business and all the things that I wanted to do, the scale. And now that I had him in place, it's been a whirlwind for the last 8 months.
I would say, so when did Ryan start exactly? Do you remember?
It was probably a few months before you and I had a call.
Okay. So he's about a year in.
Yeah, he's about a year in now.
Okay. Got it. And so what's changed in y'all's business now?
Oh my gosh. Well, the first thing I did is I renovated my space and added another office for him. So that's really changed. It's been, I've worked and trained advisors at the past when I was at the big firms and mentored other people, but it's different with my son. I really take, I'm fast tracking him in a lot of ways, spending that extra time with him and, explaining to him the different strategies. So for me, there's a big part of my day and my time spent training and investing that time into him, introducing him to clients and concepts. And so he really has gotten the fire hose for the last 8 months. From a business standpoint, gosh, since you and I have met, you've really opened my eyes to, just really working on the business. I read that book, 10X is easier than 2X, and listened to the podcast several times, and thinking about things that I do really well that I enjoy doing. And then what I've really done in planning, one of the things I've done among many is plan for the next hire, plan for things that I spend my time when that it's really not the best use of my time, I would say. Right. I think that the time spent well for me is planning and engaging with clients. That's the best use of my time. All the other administrative things that go along with the business, all the onboarding, all the ongoing maintenance, that's best used for staff.
So for Ryan's role at the moment, so what all does he do in in your operation currently right now?
He's pretty much he does as much of the administrative work as I can teach him, because what I really want him to do is learn that role, so that as we're bringing on new staff, he can train the staff that's coming in. Mm-hmm. But he's also learning the process of the engagement with clients and the process that we go through. We finally we defined our process. It's a process called Wealth Path, and that's a process that we take clients in when we engage with them. And I take them all the way through from the initial meetings, all the way through to first meeting, second meeting, the planning process, the evaluation of assets, and financial planning.
Ibexus, your partner that is easy to do business with. When it comes to annuities, partner with the company that makes it easy. Ibexus brings you innovative and competitive products backed by an A- AM Best rating for strength you can count on. Ibexus has an exclusive limited distribution model which helps you stand out, and their 100% digital applications make business seamless. Access marketing materials on their website. No logins, no hassle, just everything you need right at your fingertips. With Ibexus, you get more than products. You get a responsive team, forward-thinking product strategies, and tools built for you. Check out www.ibexus.com to get to know the team a little bit more. Ibexus, easy to do business with, always. And are you right now, so for, not necessarily for Ryan, but more for you, is if there was one thing for an advisor listening, and as you have additionally somebody like Ryan and then possibly a future staff member, what would be, let's say, one specific thing that you for sure know that you need to get off your plate, but you currently still do? What do you think that would be?
Wow, there's a lot of things that I need to get off my plate. And actually, my board back here, what I've done is I created 6 or 7 different, I call them FTEs, full-time employment, right? And so I've created 6 different positions and what those roles should be from a standpoint of onboarding, marketing, client follow-up, client success, right? All of those things that I know are important to run the business, that I do all of those things. And so one of the biggest things for me is, one was going through the exercise of identifying the different roles and things that I do and how that translates to a full-time position or part-time position. Can I outsource some of the technology and marketing to, maybe a firm to do that? Possibly. But I think one of the big things is identifying the things that, are not the most efficient use of my time.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And I think for when we look back, so it was just a couple months of us starting to work together going into 2025. And it was one of those unique scenarios where I thought you'd be a great asset to add to our advisor mentorship program. So being one of those 15 advisors, we were doing your business planning for 2025. And I think this is what really kind of set the tone for wanting you to be a part of it, is just how dialed in you were on vision of where you were looking to go with your business, bringing Ryan in. And then we talked a little bit about your 30 and 60 day action items, which, I mean, it was a lot of stuff you're trying to cram into. And then you went to an advanced sales training out in January. So you got another taste of not just one of our sales trainings for simplicity, but a 30 to 60 day action item. So you're at least 90 days out from that event from whenever we went out to Scottsdale together. So how are those coming?
It's going great, Jeremy. I got to say, in the last 90 days, I started my podcast. I've shot 5 episodes already. That's been a big deal that's been a work in progress to get the branding and my voice out there, and taking a lot of courage to put yourself out there like that.
Oh yeah.
Prior to that, I was already engaging in social media with shorts and short videos for clients to engagement, so they know who we are. I just finished 8 dinner workshops on the principles of retirement planning. So the last 2 months have been filled with, client events, and that has really consumed us, because we've been in front of, I would say, each night was a full house. There wasn't, only one night was a short one seat, but every event was full, and we had a huge wait list, which made us, originally we were going to do 4. So it turned out to be 8 events that we ended up doing for dinners. And now our calendars are full. And we're so glad that we did a lot of planning and very in the process. Simplicity has been great about, follow these steps, and from a standpoint of, sending out invitations and follow up, and after the event, things that we follow up with. And honestly, it's actually really worked. I mean, some clients that didn't book appointments right away, this just happened a few weeks ago. Client got a layoff notice, and they got our letter saying, thanks for attending, you have a free consultation, and they came right in. So it's a process that we followed and really have, I felt like we executed pretty well. The first one, of course, we were a little nervous, but it went well. I felt like once I got up on stage and, we had, once we started talking, I felt like it was a regular meeting with clients. It didn't, and I've always been a little nervous, frankly, in talking in front of big crowds, but I was very comfortable once because I knew the content, I knew, and it's like every client that I meet, it's just times 20, times 30, right? And I felt the room was really engaging. I knew the content. I knew what was important to clients through my career. So that went really, really well.
Let's maybe dive a little deeper into that. So, I mean, preparation, because you were sharing with me, I mean, you worked hard on your founder story.
Yeah.
I mean, you constantly were working on fine tuning that. You also talked a little bit about getting ready for the seminars. I mean, when you're going to do it, you're setting your standard. So you went out and you bought like big speakers. So kind of walk through that process of what all you implemented in order for those 8 to be where you just look like you've been doing it for years and just prepped.
Yeah, those are, the founder story, I think it was so critical, and I'm appreciative of that methodology of the process. Um, and I use that founder story all the time because, and really it's clients are meeting me for the first time, and they've got a lot of choices when it comes to who's going to be their financial advisor. So it gives me an opportunity to really share my story. And it was great because I could see clients connecting and sit back for a moment and really just say, wow, people came up to me afterwards, after the workshop. And, a lot of times what I had heard from other advisors is some people are there just for the dinner. And as soon as it's over, they're going to run out the door. But that wasn't the case at all. I had several people come up to me afterwards and said, I heard what you said, and I thought, I got to go and meet this guy. I need to stay after. And they stayed after and said, I'm going to come and see you. The content that we heard today, I've been to a number of these before, but what we heard from you today and your story, we want to come see you in person. It's time. So that was tremendous. That was tremendous feedback and validation that, they were receiving the content. They were hopefully they felt connected to me. And that was really the purpose. I wanted them to get a feel for who was sitting on the other side of the table or who would be if we met in person. Mm-hmm. And you're right, from a standpoint of this is client's first impression of us. So it did take a lot of work for us. I wanted to make sure the audio was correct, the video was correct. So I did. I invested in speakers and a mixer and wireless headsets. We had a big screen, a 100-inch screen with our own short projector. So I learned the technology where, the short projector means that it'll project a huge image and only be a few feet away. So everything was dialed in. I mean, we would get there early. We would mic check and make sure that from every part of that room and sit in every seat, that our audio and visual was on point. And it really was. I mean, I would say that not everybody could clearly see it. Everybody was engaged. And, when you walk that room and you're making eye contact to different people, you could see there was acknowledgement. People were head nodding and, their mannerisms were forward. They were engaged in the presentation. So I think a combination of, one, having the right audio, presenting really well, all of it together was a really, really big success. We had, our team greeting people as they walked in. They walked in with lanyards. A few people said, everything you've done from your material to your presentation was on point. And again, it's a reflection of how we do business. And I hopefully it seems like it really came through.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. And once again, it goes back to that first impression, just setting the standard, because odds are most of those individuals who showed up, who were the good quality of individuals that probably are ideal clients, it's safe to say they probably have another advisor somewhere. So it really starts from that moment of first contact with you to get a good engagement. And then I know one of the things that you've probably spoken about here over the last couple of minutes, and if an advisor's listening in, they're thinking to themselves, man, 8 dinner workshops, he started a podcast, he opened up his office space. That's a lot of expenses. So how has it been, or what's any challenges with taking on those additional expenses, or talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, anything that I'm willing to invest in the business, right? I have a lot of hope that we can grow the business, and a lot of confidence in our ability to do that with my son. So anything that I can funnel into growing the business is what I'm doing. I've committed to doing that. And so, I'm here for the long game. It is an expense, and it is quite frankly scary to think about taking on big salaries and payroll. And I think, I trust the process. I know, and this has been a process, this 8 to 10 months we've been working together, and the exposure to other advisors and other teams and how they're doing it it's been really helpful for me to see that independent advisors like myself that had that mindset of doing everything on their own, that mindset only gets you so far. I knew in the big firms, and I knew this because I got to the point when I was in the big Wall Street firms that you could only do a certain amount of production, and then you needed an assistant part-time, and then full-time, and then you needed a team. And I really got away from that for a while. But now I really see it clearly. It's like I need to run the business, and it's the best thing for my clients to have, everything expanded, and for me to be able to focus on what I do best for them.
Advisors in 2025 are looking to grow, scale, and capitalize on their business through systems and processes that have been proven by other entrepreneurial advisors here over the years. And here at Simplicity InsureMark, we've made it very easy for advisors, providing our one-pager. That one-pager is titled AMP Path to Prosperity. A couple of check boxes in order to talk about the systems and processes that entrepreneurial advisors are leveraging in their business to help them not only what sells for them when they're not there, but also take tasks off of their plate by delegation and plugging in to some of the financial technology that's offered today to make their business more efficient. So if you would like our one pager and you would like to fill that information out, make sure to check out insuremarkamp.com/Jeremy and click on Learn More for our AMP Path to Prosperity. So why now? Or your son, obviously, Ryan, getting into the business is something that catapults you, but that's a mindset thing to really take on that amount of responsibility, expenses, and when you say hope. So when did that happen, or what gives you that type of idea that, this is just going to work out? It's going to work.
Because I've seen other advisors talk about it, right? I've seen other advisors that I've met that have been through the same process. The advisor, the team, the AMP team, the other advisors on that call, I've heard their stories. I've watched probably 40 of your podcasts. And while I'm walking and that mindset, and I like, I have a lot of knowledge to share with clients, and there's so many people that I can help. I know it, from a client that's 30 to my oldest clients that are in their hundreds. I've walked that life with them. So I have a lot of knowledge to share, and it gives me confidence to see other advisors on the team that were in my situation, that were independent, that did it all. And certainly I have the ability to do it all, right? Because I've been successful at running a practice and been on my own over a decade. But I know that I can get to that level of being able to offer better things for my clients, number one, and build a practice. I have the ability to do that, and I have no doubt of that. It's just a matter of, it's so much that that I want to get to. There's so many steps, and you're right. It is a financial commitment for sure, right? To sure. Think about taking on, I don't know, $250,000, $500,000 payroll. I've heard some advisors talk about. It's hard to fathom that in a way for me, to think about, gosh, I've got these salaries I got to pay, but I know the process, and I know that I think it'll only enhance the experience that my existing clients and new clients, when they come into the firm, when we're that dialed in, and I've seen the big firms and how they process it, I know I can build that. I have no doubt. It's step by step, that's, I think is what we were doing here.
No, it's incredible. And I loving your story so far. And you mentioned, so you're 5 episodes in, so you're doing your own podcast, which, by the way, what's the name of the podcast?
So the name of the podcast is Beyond the Dollar Signs, and financial clarity is what we call it. So my point of that is, there's more than just the number. What does that number really mean? People talk about, well, I'm saving, they're accumulating assets to retirement. And it still surprises me. People walk in and they've got $2 million plus in the bank and a mortgage almost paid off, and they still don't know if they can make it. They still are unsure if they've accumulated enough assets. And until they've gone through that process, that's when they leave smiling. I had clients hugging each other as they walked out the other day because they had met me for the second time and saw the financial plan, and you could see the relief in their faces when they left. And it was really, there was more than just that dollar. And that's really the point. It's beyond the dollar signs. What does that really translate to in regards to getting you to the next stage of your life? This is one of the clients that got an early, he got a layoff notice, right? And so they wanted to know, can we do it? Can we retire now as opposed to the next 3 or 4 years? And they left that meeting with data and information and knowing that here's the process, here's the way, here's the risk, here's the way, and here are the things that you need to be concerned about. And we addressed all of those things, and they left just feeling like, wow, we have options. We can actually do it. And I think that's what it comes down to, is people don't understand, until they've gone through a process like that.
And so how has it been? So you're at least 3-4 months in now, right? Or 2.5. So how has starting an actual podcast, and maybe, what was the thought behind, so why do that now?
Well, I think it's really important to be really efficient, is for people how to have a platform to get an understanding of who we are, what our firm represents, type of clients that we work with, and the problems that we solve. Because if you think about the process of choosing an advisor, there are so many choices, especially with the internet these days. They can click, there's so much information out there. And so I felt it was important to get our story out there, what we're about, and the type of clients we work with, and the problems we solve. And so I'm really committed to social media. Last year was the first year that I was doing shorts on Instagram and Facebook, and that really is just an introduction. And now the podcast is quite a lot more, right? They're 20 minute, 25-minute episodes. It's really a commitment, but the goal really is for clients to get to know us first before coming in. So they don't, I think what it does is, one, I think they're a little bit more comfortable coming in. They're more relaxed. They're not on edge, and they're willing to share information already, right? And so I think that's really important for us. And we're trying to make sure that everything we do in social media is up to date. Website, all the different platforms. Now we've got the podcast, and the podcast has been a lot of fun. I was actually had my first guest this past episode. It was a family law attorney.
Oh, nice.
And so it was really nice. It was really nice. And I'm looking forward to doing more episodes and just getting the word out there. We can't meet with everybody, but I think I can share if they can pick up 1 or 2 things from what I've said, hopefully that helps them. And that's really what part of the intent was.
How is your clientele? I mean, you said so the shortest relationship you've had up until recently was probably 10 years. So how has that reception been? Are they tuning in? They're aware of the podcast, or when they see you now face to face, has that changed anything? Or
That's it really has. They're really supportive. They're asking me, I saw the last episode, a client walked in. Did you shoot another one? You're not getting, so they're very, very excited to see me on there. It's actually, I've seen more referrals come in because of that, not only from existing clients, but from my CPA, because I see the CPA liking the podcast, and it keeps me, I believe, top of mind. And so I really think the intent is it's working, right? It's working. It's getting that exposure out there and giving clients an introduction to who we are.
And I think it goes even further into just the thought process of, sticking to your plan, being disciplined, it's going to work. And then little crumbs along the way probably makes it to where like, oh, I'm going to probably record 4 or 5 now.
Yeah.
Immediately after.
It's funny. I just booked the next 4 episodes, and now I'm starting to think of, who are other people that clients want to hear from? Real estate professionals, that attorney was really good. I'm going to have her on again, next month. So that it's just these are the things that we focus on. Three of our specialties, really one that is dear to us is care for aging parents and the long-term care, because we've experienced that within our own family. Marital planning, not only from a standpoint of premarital planning, but I have worked with a lot of clients that have lost a spouse and what that looks like, and some of them have gotten married again, and there's the challenges as you get married later in life, and there's a lot of planning that goes on with that. So those are important to us. And then, and really in general, sudden wealth. And we see a lot of clients that accumulate wealth and they inherit money and they've never had that type of money before. I've had a client that was a lottery winner as well. So there's planning that goes along with that.
Oh, that's a show of itself. Just hearing from, well, I don't know if they want to do that, but just talking about winning the lottery,
Yeah.
but that'd be pretty cool
Right.
to actually hear. Yeah, the stories. And I would be remiss. So we go back to approximately summer, August of last year. And obviously working with us, you utilize insurance a little more favorable now into your processes, or maybe use the same. So how has been utilizing fixed index annuities? Because to my understanding, it's been a while since you were using those in your process beforehand, right? Or was that something you've always used?
Yeah, great question. So let me go back a little bit in time with the answer to that question. So remember, I started in 2002 was when I was the lead advisor, and we were coming out of, we had the .com correction, we had 9/11. That was a time period where clients were really more concerned about return of their money than return on their money, and people really resonate with that time frame. It feels just like it was yesterday, but it's more than 20 years ago. So in the beginning stages, I was always looking at things that had guarantees. And back in those days, it was, fixed annuities, variable annuities were big back in the early 2000s. But I really was identifying assets that had safety and guarantees for clients, in addition to other market related investments. So I've always been a believer that some of that portfolio should be fixed and guaranteed from an income standpoint, and that should be in combination with your other assets. So I've always believed that annuities have a place in clients' portfolios. And I would say that the last time I did fixed index annuities prior to the past year was probably in 2016, 2017. But what I found is, back in those days, rates were really low. And so the annuity products were not performing as well as I thought they should be. And so I kind of got away from that for a while. But I think the environment's really changed with higher rates. Fixed index annuities really, really shine. They have a place in a portfolio because you can still have some market participation. It's not going to beat an S&P 500, but that's not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be an anchor, and it's supposed to be, a place where it's you can look at dependable income streams and growth. When we first met, I was a little reluctant because I had done some in the past, and I thought, I don't really know if they're going to perform well. And that's when, I decided to really do some due diligence. And you invited me to go back to New York and meet with a team called Ibexus. And that's when it really opened my eyes, because I got to ask all the questions and I had to do my due diligence and how the indexes were built, how these products are structured, and how they would fit for my clients.
Yeah. And I know, because I daily, there's a huge uptick in the last, I'd say, year, especially the last month and a half, with, I think, everything that was going on with tariffs, market volatility, a lot of new faces reaching out to firms like ours, just because customers are wanting some safety, but also upside opportunity. So I'm very appreciative of you attending the New York event, and watching your growth has been incredible in just the last couple of months. I know you're well on your way. How's been actually working with Ryan though?
Watching him grow and listen to me over all these years. And sometimes we're in a meeting together and I just kind of sit back because he's speaking to some of the strategy, some of the concepts and what our purpose is and restating things. It's almost surreal to see your son right next to you, in your footsteps and something that he's he's watched me my whole career, and now to see him as an adult, as a father, and to be in the business. So Ryan finished his MBA. He majored in finance, was his undergrad. He'll finish his MBA this summer, and he's licensed. And to watch him speak and watch him add his own personality into it, it's been amazing. It's a great process. Like I said, it's been a fire hose for him, and it's hard to pass all this information to him in a short period of time. But he's doing really well.
It's an incredible story, because I know a lot of people aren't as fortunate, obviously, as you two, because you would think with children and having the opportunity to mentor your child, and they may or may not even enjoy what you do. So it truly is probably a blessing to have, if you're going to have somebody take over the business, that's your legacy. And your legacy is taking over the legacy is pretty incredible, to say the least.
A lot of my clients that are, in their 70s or 80s, what I started to notice is a lot of their CPAs and attorneys, they started to retire. And so they're looking for advisors that had been with them their whole life, and now they're looking for somebody new. And so one of the things that's great about having Ryan is, is now there's succession, now there's legacy. And so now the clients that I have that are my age, they're probably thinking, wow, how long are you going to be around? We're all going to retire at the same time, because they're within that 10-year time frame. And so with him on board, it really validates that. Oh, okay. Now I see the succession. So,
yeah. And not to mention, it doesn't hurt to have people look at it as a business now, as opposed to just, doing a workshop by yourself and, who is Mark? So I think, and so as we're wrapping up here, is there any words of wisdom or final thoughts as we close out here?
I really, you made a good point. Who is Mark? But I think it's more than that now. Now, my clients have been with me a long time. They followed me to all different firms. So I knew I had the relationship, and it wasn't the firm that was important, but it was me. But now I think it's important now, if you're at this stage of your career and you're thinking about where your business is going to be over the next 10 or 15 years, or what that legacy is going to be, you really need to give that some thought now. What is your business, and what is your plans for your business? And that's why I think it's different now. For me, it's building a firm that's not just, that's me, of course, right? Because I started that in clients with, but I really want to build a firm that really can make a difference and impact clients' lives. And as you said, they walk in, it's not just me in an office by myself. And that's what it's been for many years. Now it truly is evolving into a business, right? To an advisory firm, not just Mark Taylan's firm. It's an advisory firm.
And it's a growing and booming advisory firm. So appreciate your time, definitely, today, Mark, for taking some time and joining us today. Thank you also to the listener for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the Advisor Mentorship podcast on your favorite listening device, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Jeremy Hauser AMP. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. And as you share this episode with a friend or a colleague, remember, in a world full of betas, be an alpha.